The storm was like flying through the anger of gods themselves. Lightning bolts as thick as tree trunks struck the human ships every few seconds, sending electrical surges through their systems. The wind threw them around like toys tossing the heavy vessels up and down and sideways with tremendous force. Acid rain hammered against their hull plating, sizzling and steaming as it tried to eat through the protective coating. Juan watched his armor readings drop steadily as the corrosive liquid found weak spots in their defenses. They had maybe an hour before the acid ate through completely. Flying is impossible in this storm, Sora reported through the communication system. Her voice crackled with static from all the electrical interference. Her ship was being thrown around so violently that she could barely maintain control. "Keep pushing forward," Juan ordered. "We knew this would not be easy. The storm is our enemy, but it also hides us from Sky Hunter patrols until we get closer to the nest." As they climbed higher into the gas giant's atmosphere, the storm grew even worse. The clouds around them glowed with strange colors from the lightning and chemical reactions in the air. Visibility dropped to almost zero, forcing them to rely on instruments and radar to navigate. Then two more ships appeared on their sensors, approaching fast through the storm. It was pilot Minsu and his sister Yuna, who had heard about the rescue mission through the human communication networks. Minsu flew supply runs to mining stations and was one of the best pilots in the outer systems, Uncle Juan. "This is Minsu. We are here to help," he announced as his ship joined their formation. "Yuna and I could not let you face the Sky Hunters alone. You should not have come," Juan replied, but there was warmth in his voice. "This mission is too dangerous for civilians." "We are not civilians anymore," Yuna said firmly. "We are humans, and humans stick together. That is what you taught us during the colony wars. Now." 5 human ships flew through the deadly storm toward the Sky Hunter nest. The additional firepower would be helpful, but Juan worried about putting his nephew and niece in such extreme danger. Still, he knew they would not be talked out of helping. Great Nest appeared through the swirling clouds like a vision from a nightmare. It was a massive structure built into the side of a floating mountain that somehow stayed suspended in the storms. The nest itself was constructed from twisted metal. Taken from hundreds of captured ships over the centuries, bones of giant creatures hung from the outside walls like grotesque decorations. Some were from space whales and other peaceful creatures that had been hunted for sport. The entrance to the nest was a cave mouth filled with metal teeth designed to crush any ship that tried to enter. "Holy space dust," Sora whispered over the radio. "That thing is bigger than Central Command Station. How many Sky Hunters live in there?" "Thousands, according to the Villani," Gino replied while checking his weapon systems. "And that is just the ones they know about. There could be many more deeper inside." The Sky Hunters spotted them almost immediately. Dozens of the creatures came screaming out of the storm. With wings spread wide and mouths full of deadly acid, they were even more terrifying than the humans had imagined. Each one was the size of a fighter jet with razor-sharp claws and teeth-like swords. The monsters flew with impossible speed, diving and turning through the storm as if the wind and lightning meant nothing to them. Their acid breath left glowing trails in the air, and their roars could be heard even over the thunder-open fire. Juan commanded. All ships engaged targets, the humans, unleashed everything they had. Energy beams and explosive rounds filled the air around them. Several Sky Hunters fell shrieking into the clouds below, but more kept coming to replace them. The creatures fought with savage fury, protecting their territory. Yuna's ship took a direct hit from acid breath that melted through her rear armor. "I am losing power," she reported with fear in her voice. "Cannot maintain altitude much longer. Form defensive formation around Yuna." Juan ordered immediately. "Protect the damaged ship." That is human. Rule number 1. We never leave anyone behind. The other 4 ships moved to surround Yuna's vessel while continuing to fight off the Sky Hunter attacks. They slowly pushed forward toward the nest entrance, taking heavy fire from all directions. The acid was eating away at their armor, and several systems were failing. More sky hunters poured out of the nest entrance like angry wasps. The humans realized they were facing hundreds of the creatures, with more appearing every minute. The monsters seemed endless in number and fought without any fear of death. "We cannot fight them all out here in the open," Minsu called out. "We need to get inside the nest where they cannot surround us." "Are you insane?" Gino replied. "That nest is their home territory. It will be even more dangerous inside." "Maybe," Juan said, studying the tactical situation, "but inside, they cannot use their flight advantage against us, and we need to find the prisoners before the sky hunters decide to kill them all." The human ships fought their way through the swarm of sky hunters until they reached the entrance to the great nest. The metal teeth tried to snap shut on them, but their ships were too fast. The humans flew into the darkness of the nest, leaving the storm behind. Inside the nest was like entering another world. The walls were covered with strange symbols painted in what looked like blood. Acid dripped from the ceiling, creating pools of poison on the floor. The air was so thick and toxic that their breathing systems worked overtime to filter it. The tunnel system was vast, with passages leading in every direction. Some were large enough for ships, while others could barely fit a person. The humans could hear sounds echoing from. Deep inside the nest, roars and screams, and the crying of prisoners. "Stay together," Juan warned his team. "It would be easy to get lost in here, and we need to cover each other." They flew deeper into the nest, following the sounds of prisoners. The tunnels were lit by a strange glowing fungus that gave everything a sickly green color. Bones and metal scraps covered the floor, and the smell of death was everywhere. The first chamber they found contained dozens of cages filled with different alien species. The prisoners looked up in amazement as human ships appeared. Villani and other peaceful races were trapped there waiting to be fed to the sky hunter young, but Zila was not among them. An old Villani prisoner pressed against the bars of his cage when he saw the humans. "She is in the Queen's chamber," he whispered with terror in his voice. "The big ones always go to the Queen first. She feeds them to her babies for special occasions." The prisoner pointed deeper into the nest toward a passage that glowed with red light. "You are too late, humans," he said sadly. "No one survives the Queen's chamber. The babies are always hungry, and the Queen enjoys watching her prey suffer." But Juan shook his head firmly. "We are not too late until we see proof. Keep the other prisoners safe. We are going after Zila." The human ships moved deeper into the nest toward the red glow. The passage opened up into a chamber so large they could barely see the other side, and there in the center on a throne made of bones and twisted metal sat the Sky Hunter Queen herself. She was enormous, with wings that could block out the sun and claws longer than human swords. Her eyes glowed like red fire, and her mouth was full of teeth like broken glass. Around her throne, dozens of baby sky hunters crawled and fought each other. Each baby was already as large as a human fighter jet, and there, suspended in a cage directly above the Queen's head, was Zila. She was still alive but barely conscious. The Queen was clearly saving her for something special, perhaps, to feed to her favorite child, 4 little humans. The Queen spoke in a voice like grinding metal. "Come to die for one worthless prey creature. How amusing! I will feed you to my children piece by piece and save your bones for my collection." The baby sky hunters began circling the human ships, hissing and snapping, with acid dripping from their mouths. Each one was deadly enough to kill a normal person. But these were not normal people. These were humans who had decided that one alien mother's life was worth fighting the most dangerous monsters in the galaxy. Captain Park Gino was repairing his cargo ship's engine when Juan's emergency signal reached him across the void of space. The message was short but clear. "Old friend, need help. Dangerous mission. Bring weapons." The signal coordinates pointed toward an unknown system beyond the trade routes. Gino did not hesitate for even a second. He had fought beside Juan during the Mars Colony Wars and knew that his friend would never call for help unless the situation was desperate. Within minutes, he was loading his ship with every weapon he owned and setting course for the meeting point. Lieutenant Kim Sora received the same signal while patrolling the outer rim of human space. She was hunting pirates who had been attacking merchant vessels, but abandoned her mission immediately when she heard Juan's call. Her military training told her to report to headquarters first, but her loyalty to old friends was stronger than regulations. The 3 human ships met at the coordinates Juan had sent. The reunion was brief but warm, as the old soldiers greeted each other through video screens. They had saved each other's lives many times during the war and trusted each other completely. Juan introduced them to Nira, who was still amazed that humans would drop everything to help a stranger. The blue-skinned girl explained her people's situation once again, while the humans studied star charts and planned their approach to the gas giant. The journey to Nira's homeworld took 2 days through hyperspace. During the trip, the humans learned more about Villani culture and the Sky Hunter threat. Nira showed them pictures of her floating crystal cities and her captured mother Zila, who was a teacher, beloved by all the children. Villani people are not fighters, she explained sadly. We are traders and artists and teachers. We have never learned to make war because we thought the galaxy was safe for peaceful species, but the Sky Hunters care nothing for peace. They only want to hunt and kill and feed when they emerged from hyperspace near the gas giant. The humans saw something that took their breath away. Floating in the planet's upper atmosphere were dozens of crystal cities connected by bridges of light. Each city was a work of art that sparkled, like diamonds against the swirling clouds below. Thousands of Villani gathered on the landing platforms as the 3 human ships approached. Word had spread that the legendary human warriors had come to attempt the impossible rescue, the crowd whispered among themselves about these strange beings who were not afraid of the Sky Hunters. Elder Kiva met them at the main platform. She was ancient even by Villani standards, with skin like blue glass and eyes that had seen centuries of history. Her voice carried the weight of great sadness as she welcomed the humans to their world. "Humans, you should not have come," she said, while floating several feet above the platform in the way of her people. Nira's mother Zila was taken to the great nest in the storm clouds above. That place is death itself. The Sky Hunters have lived there for 1,000 years, building their fortress from the bones of their victims. The elder led them to a crystal chamber where holographic displays showed the layout of the gas giant's atmosphere. The great nest was located in the deepest storm system where lightning strikes happened every few seconds, and acid rain fell like poison from the clouds. No ship has ever survived entry into that storm, Elder Kiva warned. The winds can tear apart metal hulls. The lightning can overload any electrical system. The acid rain melts through armor plating in minutes, and that is before the Sky Hunters even notice intruders. The humans studied the tactical information with growing concern. The nest itself was built into the side of a floating mountain anchored in the storm by unknown alien technology. Thousands of Sky Hunters patrolled the area in groups flying faster than most fighter jets. Their queen is as large as your biggest warships, the elder continued. She has ruled the nest for 500 years and never been challenged in combat. Her acid breath can melt through battle armor. Her claws can slice through starship hulls like paper. Her children number. In the thousands, Gino and Sora exchanged glances across the crystal table. This was clearly the most dangerous mission any of them had ever considered. The odds of success were essentially 0, and the odds of survival were not much better. But Juan was studying the storm patterns and nest defenses with the focused intensity of a veteran soldier. He had made up his mind to attempt this rescue and was already planning how to make it work. The sky hunters are used to dealing with ships that try to avoid them, he said, finally. What if we do the opposite? What if we fly straight at them and hit them so hard they do not have time to organize their defenses? The Volani looked confused by this strategy. Their peaceful nature made it difficult for them to understand human military thinking. But Gino and Sora nodded slowly as they began to see what Juan was planning. We go in fast and loud. Sora agreed. Hit everything that moves and get to the nest before they can surround us. It is still suicide, Gino pointed out, but his voice carried admiration rather than criticism. That has never stopped us before. That night, the humans prepared their ships for the most dangerous flight of their lives. They installed extra armor plating and acid-resistant coating on their hulls. They loaded armor-piercing ammunition and high-energy weapons. They ran diagnostics on every system twice. Nira brought them traditional Volani food and sat with them as they worked. She showed them more pictures of her mother and told stories about their life together. Zila taught flying to young Volani and was known for her kindness and patience with students who were slow to learn. She always said the most important thing was to never give up. Nira said, quietly, even when something seems impossible, there is always a way, if you keep trying. I think that is why I knew humans would help us. You never give up either. The humans were touched by the girls, faith in them, but also worried about letting her down. The mission they were planning was so dangerous that even they were not sure they would survive. But they could not let fear stop them from trying, as the storm clouds gathered above them like an approaching nightmare. Juan made final preparations. He checked his weapons one last time and sealed his combat armor. Then he looked at his two oldest friends who had followed him into this madness. We might not come back from this one, he told them honestly. Gino grinned and powered up his ship's weapons. Then we better make it count. Sora activated her navigation systems and locked onto the storm coordinates for Zila and all the other prisoners. The 3 human ships lifted off from the crystal platform and flew up toward the deadly storm clouds above. As they climbed higher into the poisonous atmosphere, the Volani people watched from their cities and whispered prayers for the brave humans who were attempting the impossible rescue. Behind them, Nira pressed her face against the crystal window of the platform. Her golden eyes followed the ships until they disappeared into the storm. Lightning began to flash in the distance like artillery fire. The battle for her mother's life was about to begin. Captain Li Huan was floating in the cold darkness of space, checking his mining equipment when something crashed into his ship's hull. The sound echoed through his small vessel like thunder. He quickly looked at his screens to see what had hit him, but the sensors showed nothing unusual. Just empty space and distant stars. Then he saw her. A small figure was floating outside his airlock window. Her blue skin glowed softly in the starlight, and her silver hair moved like liquid mercury around her head. She wore a damaged spacesuit that was leaking precious air into the vacuum. Her large golden eyes were wide with fear and desperation as she pressed her hands against the glass. Juan did not think twice. He ran to the airlock controls and started the emergency rescue sequence. His computer warned him about unknown alien contamination and possible dangers, but he ignored every warning. The girl outside was dying, and that was all that mattered to him. The airlock cycled open, and Juan pulled the small alien inside. She was lighter than a human child, and her skin felt warm despite the cold of space. Her breathing was shallow and rapid as he connected an emergency oxygen mask to her face. She gasped and coughed as clean air filled her lungs. After several minutes, her breathing became steady, and her golden eyes focused on Juan's face. She tried to speak, but only weak sounds came out. Juan brought her water and some basic food from his supplies. He had never seen her species before, but she looked young and scared like any child who had been through trauma. The alien girl studied Juan carefully, as if she was trying to decide whether to trust him. Her people must have taught her to be careful around strangers, because she kept her distance, even though he had saved her life. But desperation finally won over caution, and she began to speak in broken human language. "My name is Nira," she said in a voice like wind chimes. Her accent was strange, but Juan could understand her words. "I am Villani people. We live in floating cities and gas clouds near here." She pointed toward a section of space that looked empty to human eyes, but must have contained her home world. Juan introduced himself and told her she was safe on his ship, asked how she had ended up floating alone in space so far from any known inhabited system. Nira's golden eyes filled with tears as she began to tell her story. 3 days ago, the Sky Hunters came to our city. She said, "They are terrible flying monsters that live in storm clouds of gas planets. They are bigger than your fighter ships and have claws that can cut through metal like paper. Their breath is acid that melts everything it touches." The Sky Hunters had attacked Nira's home without warning. They came screaming out of the storm clouds, with wings spread wide and mouths full of poison. The peaceful Villani people had no weapons to fight back. They could only run and hide as the monsters destroyed their beautiful crystal buildings. My mother was teaching young children how to fly when the Sky Hunters found her school. Nira continued. Her voice broke as she remembered the terrible scene. They took my mother and 5 other adults back to their nest in the deepest storm clouds. No one has ever returned from the Sky Hunter nest alive. Nira explained that her people had tried to hire warriors to rescue the captured Villani, but every mercenary and soldier they contacted refused the job. Even the toughest alien fighters called it suicide to enter the Sky Hunter territory. The monsters were too dangerous, and their nest was protected by permanent storms that could destroy any ship. But Nira had heard stories about humans, stories of impossible rescues and victories against overwhelming odds. Other alien species whispered about the crazy humans who would fight anyone and anything to protect innocent people. Humans who never gave up even when facing certain death. So Nira had stolen a small ship from her people's fleet and searched the nearby star systems for months looking for any human she could find. She had nearly died several times when her stolen ship broke down, but she kept going because her mother was counting on her. "Please, human, help," Nira begged with tears streaming down her blue cheeks. "My mother is trapped in Sky Hunter nest. They will feed her to their babies soon. My people are too scared to save her. But humans are brave fighters. Stories say humans fight monsters that even warriors fear." Juan looked at this small, desperate girl who had traveled so far just to find someone willing to help. Her mother was probably already dead after 3 days in a Sky Hunter nest. But the hope in Nira's golden eyes reminded him of his own daughter back on Earth. He thought about how he would feel if someone had taken his child and no one was willing to help. "The Sky Hunters sound like the worst kind of monsters," Juan said slowly. "Tell me more about their nest and how many of them there are." Nira described the Great Nest, built inside a permanent storm system in the upper atmosphere of her gas giant homeworld. Lightning struck constantly, and acid rain fell like poison. The winds could tear apart most ships before they even got close to the nest itself. The Sky Hunters numbered in the thousands, with their queen being as large as a human battleship. They had been terrorizing the local systems for centuries, taking prisoners to feed their young and stealing metal to expand their nest. No military force had ever been strong enough to attack them successfully. Elder. "Kiva says the Sky Hunters are death itself," Nira whispered. "They have killed every rescue team that ever tried to enter their territory. But humans are different from other species. You do impossible things when others say it cannot be done." Juan thought about the odds they would be facing. Thousands of acid-breathing monsters in their own territory, protected by deadly storms and led by a creature the size of a warship. It was clearly a suicide mission that no reasonable person would attempt. But as he looked at Neera's desperate face, he remembered why he had joined the human space fleet years ago. It was not for glory or money or adventure. It was to protect innocent people who could not protect themselves. And right now, this scared alien girl and her captured mother needed protection more than anyone. Kid, you found the right human, Juan said, reaching for his weapons locker. Let me call some friends and we will go get your mom back. Neera's golden eyes went wide with shock and hope. She had expected the human to refuse, just like all the others, but here he was, already preparing for the most dangerous mission in the galaxy just because a stranger had asked for help. You will really help me, she whispered. Juan smiled as he checked his plasma rifle and space armor. That is what humans do, kid. We do not leave anyone behind. The Sky Hunter Queen rose from her bone throne with movements that shook the entire chamber. Her massive wings spread wide, casting shadows across the cavern like storm clouds. Each wing was longer than a human battleship and covered with scars from centuries of battles. The baby Sky Hunters stopped their play and looked up at their mother with hungry eyes. They knew feeding time was about to begin. The queen had taught them to savor the fear of their prey before the kill, and these small humans looked especially tasty. Minsu, you are the fastest pilot here, Juan said quickly through the communication system. Get to that cage above the queen's head. Sora and Gino, we hold the defensive line. Make every shot count, because we will not get a second chance at this. The humans spread out in the massive chamber, using the rocky formations and metal debris for cover. The baby Sky Hunters began their attack immediately, diving down from the ceiling with claws extended and acid streaming from their mouths. Sora rolled her ship to the side as a baby Sky Hunter crashed into the spot where she had been hovering a second before. She spun around and fired her energy cannon directly into the creature's chest. Black blood exploded across the chamber walls. One down, about 50 more to go, she called out with grim humor. The queen watched the battle with growing anger. These humans were not running in terror like her usual prey. Instead, they were fighting back with weapons that actually hurt her children. She had never seen anything like it in 500 years of ruling the nest. What manner of creatures are you? She roared, breathing a stream of acid that melted a section of the chamber wall. Your species fights like demons. But you look so small and weak. We are human, Gino shouted back while firing explosive rounds at 3 baby Sky Hunters that were trying to surround him, and we do not surrender to monsters. The queen laughed with a sound like breaking glass. Humans, I have heard stories of your species from captured traitors. They say you fight each other constantly in meaningless wars. Very well. I will add human bones to my collection. Meanwhile, Minsu was flying through the chaos toward Zila's cage above the queen's. Head baby Sky Hunters kept trying to intercept him, but he was too fast and too skilled for them to catch. His ship danced between their attacks like a leaf in the wind. The cage was made of twisted metal and secured with locks that looked like alien technology. Minsu landed his ship on a rocky ledge near the cage and jumped out wearing his combat armor. The cage was just a few meters away, but baby Sky Hunters were climbing up the chamber walls to reach him. Inside the cage, Zila opened her eyes and saw a young human male working on the lock with cutting tools. She was weak from 3 days without food or water, but still conscious enough to wonder why this stranger was risking his life for her. Why she whispered in broken human language. Why risk death for someone you never met? Because your daughter asked us to, Minsu said while his tools sparked against the alien metal. And humans do not abandon family no matter how dangerous it gets. Down below, the battle was getting more intense. Juan and his team were holding their own against the baby Sky Hunters. but the queen was preparing to join the fight herself. She flexed her massive claws and opened her jaws wide, showing teeth that could bite a ship in half. "You have killed enough of my children," she hissed. "Now you will face me directly." The queen launched herself into the air with surprising speed for something so large. Her claws swept toward Juan, who barely managed to dodge in his ship. The tips of her claws scraped across, his hull leaving deep scratches in the armor. Sora saw the queen attacking Juan and immediately flew to help her old friend. She fired everything she had at the monster's back, but her weapons barely scratched the queen's thick hide. The creature turned toward her with eyes full of rage. "Foolish little human. You dare attack the queen of the Sky Hunters." The queen breathed acid at Sora's ship, but the pilot was ready. She activated her emergency thrusters and shot straight up toward the ceiling. The acid stream missed her by inches and melted the rock wall behind her. Gino used the distraction to position himself for a flanking attack. He loaded his most powerful missiles and targeted the queen's wing joints. If he could damage her ability to fly, the battle might become more even. But the queen sensed the attack coming and spun around to face him. Her tail whipped through the air like a massive club. Gino tried to dodge, but the tail caught his ship's wing and sent him spinning into the chamber wall systems failing. Gino reported as sparks flew from his control panel. "Navigation is offline and weapons are at half power." The queen roared with triumph as she saw one of the human ships damaged. She began stalking toward Gino, ready to finish him off with her claws. But Juan was not going to let his friend die. He flew directly between the queen and Gino's. "Damaged ship. You want to fight someone, fight me." He challenged the monster. The queen accepted the challenge gladly. She had been impressed by the humans' fighting spirit, but now she would show them the futility of defying her. She lunged forward with claws extended, aiming to grab Juan's ship and crush it like an insect. But Juan was ready. He fired his grappling hooks into the chamber ceiling and used them to swing his ship out of the way at the last second. The queen's claws scraped against empty air, and she stumbled forward off balance. Sora saw her chance and dove down from above, firing her remaining missiles at the back of the queen's head. The explosions stunned the massive creature, and black blood ran down her neck. She spun around wildly, trying to see her attacker above them all. Minsu finally broke through the cage lock and freed Zila from her prison. The Villani woman was barely conscious but alive. She tried to stand, but her legs would not support her weight after being suspended for 3 days. "Hold on to me," Minsu said, lifting her carefully. "We are getting out of here." But as they prepared to escape, the queen noticed what was happening. Her precious prisoner was being stolen by these insolent humans. She forgot about Juan and the others and focused all her rage on Minsu and Zila. "No, my prize. You will not take her from me." The queen launched herself toward the cage with incredible speed. Her massive jaws opened wide enough to swallow both Minsu and Zila in one bite. It looked like both of them would die before the rescue could be completed. That was when Juan made the most dangerous decision of his life. He flew his ship directly into the queen's path, putting himself between the monster and the people he was trying to save. He fired every weapon he had at point-blank range into the queen's face. The explosion was tremendous. The queen screamed, in pain and rage, as the weapons tore into her hide. She crashed into the chamber wall but was still very much alive, and now more furious than ever. Her face was badly damaged and black blood covered her vision. "You will pay for that, human," she hissed. "I will make your death last for days." But the explosion had also damaged Juan's ship. His hull was cracked and his engines were failing. Pieces of debris had fallen on top of him, and he was trapped under a heavy section of metal that had broken loose. From the ceiling captain, Sora screamed, trying to reach her trapped friend. "Get them out of here," Juan ordered weakly. "That is a direct military command. Leave me and complete the mission." But Sora and Gino were not about to abandon their friend. They had served together for too many years and saved each other's lives too many times, Gino managed to get his damaged ship moving again and flew over to help lift the debris off Juan. The Queen was getting back to her feet and preparing for another attack. The humans were running out of time and options. It looked like they might have rescued Zila only to die in the process. That was when they heard it, a sound that made even the Sky Hunter Queen pause in confusion. It was the sound of more ships approaching through the storm. Outside the nest, "This is pilot Ryu Daiho of the cargo ship Morning Star," came a voice over their communication system. Did someone say humans were in trouble? Because we do not leave our people behind. The Queen had never heard anything like the sound that followed. Dozens of human ships were pouring into her nest from every tunnel and entrance, mining vessels, cargo haulers, passenger transports, and even a few military patrol ships. Every human within communication range had heard the call for help and come running. The Sky Hunter Queen had ruled her nest for 500 years and had never seen anything like what was happening now. Through every tunnel entrance came more human ships of every size and type, cargo haulers that should have been carrying supplies, instead carried weapons. Mining ships that should have been collecting asteroids instead came loaded with explosives. Captain Ryu Daiho was the first to enter the Queen's chamber, flying his massive cargo ship through an opening that barely fit his vessel. Behind him came dozens of others. Pilot Jung Woo-sung in his passenger transport that he had converted into a makeshift gunship engineer Kim Tae-hyung in his maintenance pod, armed with industrial cutting tools. "We got your message, Juan Daiho," announced as he opened fire on a group of baby sky hunters. Something about humans needing help. That is all we needed to hear. The Queen stared in shock as human ships filled her sacred chamber. These were not military vessels or professional warriors. These were ordinary working people who had dropped everything to answer a call for help. She had never faced anything like this coordinated response from an entire species. "What is this?" she demanded as weapons fire erupted all around her. "Where did all these humans come from? We are everywhere." Sora laughed as she helped coordinate the attack, and we talked to each other. When one human calls for help, we all come running. The baby sky hunters that had been winning the fight just minutes before suddenly found themselves outnumbered 10-1. Human ships swarmed around them, firing from every direction. The young monsters had never faced multiple opponents before and did not know how to respond. Jung Woo-sung used his passenger transport's powerful engines to ram directly into a baby sky hunter that was threatening Gino's damaged ship. The impact sent the creature crashing into the chamber wall with a sickening crunch. "Sorry about the rough ride," he called out cheerfully. "But this is an emergency." Pickup service engineer Kim Tae-hyung flew his small maintenance pod right up to the Queen's face and started cutting into her armored hide with industrial lasers. The tools were designed to cut through starship hulls and worked just as well on Monster. "Skin hey ugly," he shouted at the massive creature. "Try picking on someone your own size." "Oh wait, there is nobody your own size because you are a freak." The Queen roared with rage and tried to swat the tiny pod like an annoying insect, but Tae-hyung was too quick and too small to hit easily. He darted around her head like an angry bee, stinging her with his cutting lasers wherever he could reach. More humans kept arriving through every entrance. Captain Lee Min-ho brought his mining ship loaded with explosive charges that were normally used to break apart asteroids. Pilot Park Sung-ho flew his racing ship that was built for speed rather than combat, but carried enough firepower to hurt the baby sky hunters. The Queen realized that her advantage in size and strength meant nothing when facing so many opponents. She tried to retreat toward the back of her chamber, but human ships blocked every escape route. They had completely surrounded her in her own throne room. "This is impossible," she screamed. "Nothing like this has ever happened before. Individual creatures do not risk their lives for strangers. Their species do not unite to help people they have never met. Welcome to humanity, sweetheart," Captain Daiho replied as he fired his biggest weapons. directly at her chest. "We are probably the craziest species in the galaxy." While the battle raged around them, Minsu finally managed to get Zila to safety. He carried the weak Villani woman to his ship and started medical treatment with the emergency. Supplies he carried. Her condition was serious, but she would survive. "Thank you," she whispered to him as he worked. "Why do humans do this? Why risk everything for people you do not know? Because it is the right thing to do," Minsu said simply, "and because someone has to stand up to monsters like these." The Queen was becoming desperate as more of her children fell to human weapons. She had lost dozens of baby sky hunters and was taking serious damage herself. Her reign of terror was ending, and she knew it. "If I cannot have victory, then I will have revenge," she declared. "I will kill as many humans as possible before I die." She gathered her remaining strength and launched herself directly at the cluster of ships surrounding Juan's trapped vessel. Her plan was to take out as many humans as she could in one final attack, but she had underestimated human determination and teamwork. Every human ship in the chamber opened fire on the Queen simultaneously. Dozens of energy beams, missiles, and explosive. Rounds hit her from all directions. The combined firepower was more than even her armored hide could withstand. She crashed to the chamber floor with a sound like thunder. The Queen tried to rise again, but her strength was finally failing. Black blood pooled around her body, and her wings were too damaged to lift her massive weight. She looked up at the human ships surrounding her with something that might have been respect. "You fight like demons," she gasped. "But you fight for others, not for yourselves. I have never seen such madness." "We fight for what is right," Juan said as his friends finally freed him from the debris, "and we fight together. That is what makes us human." The remaining baby sky hunters saw their mother defeated and lost their will to fight. They scattered toward the deeper tunnels of the nest, fleeing in terror. The humans let them go. They had not come here for genocide. Only rescue medical teams rushed to treat the wounded while others began searching for more prisoners. Humans found dozens of aliens from different species locked in cages throughout the nest. All of them were freed and given medical attention. The Queen lay dying on the floor of her throne room, watching as the humans worked to help their enemies, prisoners. She had spent centuries believing that only strength mattered, that the powerful had the right to prey on the weak. But these creatures had shown her something different. Perhaps she whispered with her last breath, "Perhaps there is another way to live." As the Sky Hunter Queen died, her nest began to collapse without her power holding it together. The humans quickly evacuate. The Sky Hunter Queen had never seen anything like what happened next. Through the storm came dozens of human ships from across the star system. Mining vessels, cargo haulers, passenger transports, and even a few military patrol ships. Every human in the area had heard Yuna's call for help. "Did someone say humans were in trouble?" came a voice over the radio. It was Captain Ryu Deho of the cargo ship Morning Star. "Because we don't leave our people behind." The humans didn't have a plan. They didn't have matching weapons or coordinated tactics. They just had something more important. They had each other. Ship after ship poured into the Sky Hunter nest, firing everything they had. The Queen realized she was facing something she had never encountered before. These weren't individual prey creatures fighting for survival. This was an entire species that came running when one of their own called for help. "What are you?" she asked in horror as human ships filled her nest with weapons fire. "We're human," Juan said, finally free from the rock that had trapped him. "And we just learned that sky hunters taste like chicken." The battle was over quickly. After that, the Queen and her remaining children fled deeper into the gas planet's atmosphere. The humans rescued every prisoner in the nest and destroyed the terrible place completely. Back on the Villani floating cities, the celebration lasted for days. Zila was reunited with her daughter Nira. The rescued prisoners returned to their families, and the humans became heroes to species across the galaxy. Elder Kiva approached the human team with tears in her ancient eyes. "How can we ever repay this kindness?" she asked. "You don't need to repay anything," Juan said. "Just remember that humans keep their promises, and maybe put in a good word for us with other peaceful species." The story spread throughout the galaxy faster than light travel. Every species heard about the humans who fought sky hunters to save one alien mother. Soon, calls for help came from everywhere. Pirates threatening trading routes, slavers capturing innocent people, monsters terrorizing colonies, and every time, humans answered the call. Not because they were paid to fight, not because they were ordered to help, but because that's what humans do. They protect those who cannot protect themselves. Years later, when Nira became the leader of her people, she would tell the story to young Villani children. About the day humans proved that some things are worth fighting for no matter how impossible the odds might seem. "That's why we call them the Guardians of the Galaxy," she would say. "Because when darkness comes, humans bring the light." And somewhere in the deep space between stars, Captain Li Huan and his team continued their work. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Because in a universe full of wonders and terrors, humanity had found its true calling. They were the ones who came running when someone called for help.